Hello, traveler, and welcome to Awakened Aspects. I am Miara Rose, and I'm here today to give you a bit of a synopsis of what a quantum healing hypnosis session is and what to expect in the process, should you be interested in participating in this process for yourself. First, I want to give you a brief explanation of who I am and where I come from. As a teenager, I had early experiences with extraterrestrial type beings, or interdimensionals, as I like to call them today. Now, throughout my 20s, I was under a lot of duress emotionally, and there was quite the path for me carved out then, as I was led through multitudes of experiences, both on this dimension and others. It really drove me deeper into esoteric studies as well as spiritual studies, and to unravel what was potentially going on with me, as I did go to professional psychologists as well as psychiatrists to find out, what was happening on an emotional level with me, which really came out to be inconclusive. During that time, I was an artist. I practiced my art in my spare time while I worked in education and advertising as a day job. Around 2011 is when I started exploring regression therapy, or hypnotherapy, I guess you could say. I was very curious, and I did explore what I wanted and what I thought was going to be past life regression. And I experienced what is called the 15th step process, which really opened me up to experiencing what they term as your guides, or your guidance system. And I was surprised to encounter, various extraterrestrial beings that were supposedly my guides. So it jarred me a bit, and it was something that really interfered in my life at that time, making it a little bit harder to carry my day job. So I took a break. It wasn't until I was pregnant with my daughter that I decided to go back to explore psychotherapy and counseling as a profession and enroll in a master's degree. I was enrolled in a Jungian program for a master's while I was pregnant with my daughter, and began to re-explore the deeper psyche and the realms of the psyche. I began to remember these past experiences I had growing up, and the traumas involved in sometimes what we call life, and how we experience these emotions. At that time, it was a bit challenging to juggle my newborn daughter and my graduate course of study. So I did move on to then re-explore the regression therapy, the ideas of moving into alternative modes of therapy. And I started studying and practicing, as well as engaging with alternative modes of therapy, including holotropic breath work, as well as regression therapy. I did begin to explore QHHT then. In 2017, I was led into a very powerful QHHT session on my own with a practitioner who also conducted a variation of it, which wasn't exactly QHHT, it was a variation of it. There is a video that I have transcribed that will be provided here on the same page as well soon, if not already when you see this. It really opened me up to understanding that we do exist on multiple dimensional planes at once, and we are not only this body. We are not only our mind, and we are not only our soul. Actually, we are farther than that. We expand our experience, and our consciousness expands multitudes of dimensional planes, and even universal planes in the multiverse of experience. So I started to understand how this kind of work really dove deep into the psyche. So At this point, I have undergone years of counseling myself, where, I have always believed and have been a true believer in therapy and the importance of therapy on our healing path. However, when I explored some of these regression sessions, I realized that that healing could actually be done fairly quickly, within a matter of hours, when we are guided deep into our own experience. And when someone is there with us, holding the space and witnessing that experience with us, it's quite powerful, the healing that can take place then, which is quite unexplainable, really. So in order to really solidify the reality I was having, I got deeper into astrology, because when I did look at astrology charts, whether it was a transit chart of the times, whether it was my own chart, whether it was other people's charts, I started seeing patterns that really reflected the experiences one would have in their life, on their path, and throughout their life, and the themes that would come up, especially the keys to really understanding what was occurring and what was underlying the experience. So I began to really study astrology professionally, and offer astrology professionally, which I have been providing for the past couple of years. In 2020 is when I started providing galactic astrological readings to confirm various starseed experiences that they were having. What I would do is I would give others a confirmation report of these starseed markings I would find in their astrology chart. So I came to the realization that although I could and have the talent and ability to see someone's galactic heritage, experience, soul, evolution, and initiations within their astrology chart, that was a lot for me to take on for each person that I encounter. That, and I noticed that if someone wasn't ready to receive that information, they just couldn't receive it. And it had nothing to do with me and how I was giving them the reading. But what I noticed was, when others went on a path of their own before coming to me, such as going through a regression session or being ready for a regression session, or having various downloads, whether through their own spiritual internal work, the process of healing, transformation, and transmutation, and or travelers to various sacred sites or portals on the planet, DNA activators, these were people who were ready for those readings, and they were ready to receive those readings. So what I realized was really the most profound thing I could do was to really be there and witness someone as they move through their own experience of initiation through what I deem as this quantum healing hypnosis. And each session is very different. Each session provides someone with the experience of moving into, what could be seen as lifetimes, but it can also be seen as archetypal experiences that lead them further into knowing themselves. And really using the imagination is the key here. Unfortunately, it's something that most of us are taught is only for children or for escape. So we do tend to have resistance and hesitancy when it comes to using our imagination, and reserve it only for a select time or experience that we know we can escape our current reality with. We're never really taught to use the imagination, to really respect it, to get deeper into our reality. And, that's really what this begins to explore, is the imaginal realm. It is the subconscious, these, the state in our experience that goes into the dream state. When we move into dreams, we really begin to experience really a depth of wealth of information from our psyche that we can either bring to this realm, can bring in here, or we can leave it there, depending on, if we choose to remember or not when we wake up. Sometimes dreams are so jarring that we cannot avoid it, but to experience them. And usually those are very poignant and tend to show us a transformation that we're actually undergoing in our life. So with QHHT, or what I call, this is more of a BQH technique. So QHHT stands for Quantum Healing Hypnosis Technique. And this is beyond quantum healing. Now, QHHT was invented by Dolores Cannon. And what she did is she was a hypnotherapist and regressionist in the 60s and 70s is when she started doing this with her husband. And, they would help them lose weight or stop smoking or, change habits. So that's what they used it for. And that's what it was primarily used for back then. But at one point in the 80s is when she really started getting clients that were all of a sudden experiencing extraterrestrial lifetimes. So in the late 70s, though, in the 70s, she started having clients that experienced past lifetimes that would come through their sessions. And she would sit there and move through them as they did that. But then during the 80s is when they started experiencing more of an extraterrestrial, non-human form in their therapy. And she was very compelled then to begin to document their experiences. And with her thousands of clients, she would document various clients that had no knowledge of one another, their experiences, and their overlapping similarities in their experiences. And she's written dozens of books that have, demonstrated these experiences. And she called herself an archivist. She did nothing but sit there and be with them, to hold space for them as they went through those experiences. This hypnotherapy experience, what I will be doing is minimally interfering with your process, only guiding the experience in order to go deeper and to answer any questions that you may come to the session with. And ultimately, that is my goal. Now, around 2008 or so, there was a woman, Candace Craw-Goldman. She was extremely affected by the QHHT process that she learned from Dolores. So she decided to get heavily involved with the program and really help Dolores as much as she could, and really learned a lot along the way. Then she began to understand that the new technology, or the way we're advancing right now, really held a place there where we could take this kind of regression therapy online. Back then, Dolores did not offer it online, nor did she think that it needed to be online. But Candace Craw-Goldman decided around 2017 or so that it really could go online. The space is not really pertinent, and our experience and our spirits, our vessels can remain where we are, but our experiences can be shared on a different dimensional access point. So that's really what this quantum is in this quantum healing. So in 2017, she decided to take that online, and it has been online ever since. Now, in 2020, during the pandemic, is when QHHT was taken online, and that was, through Dolores's daughter, who had taken over, and held her legacy since Dolores's passing in 2014. So now, all of these modalities are really done online because they can be, and because they're effective that way. This process, again, is a way for us to connect. And again, there is no need to be in the same place for it to be effective. It is just being together. That's really the most important part of it. So BQH, or Beyond Quantum Healing, it really goes into the heart. And I am a heart-based facilitator. So I am in my heart with you. And I can focus on my heart space to connect with your heart space. And that's, again, where the healing begins to unlock. Because what the heart does is it opens us up to the fifth dimensional plane and beyond. So we have below, our chakras below our heart chakra. Our first three chakras are really connected to the lower dimensional planes, the third and fourth planes of density. The third and fourth dimensions are associated with our solar plexus as well. Our fourth dimensional access point is there. But when we move into the fifth dimension, we move into the heart space and we open that up for all the higher dimensional access points. So that's really where we aim to, start and begin in our process, is that heart space. And then open up the other dimensional access points. And, it is about a half-hour induction where I will, hopefully go through a relaxation process with you where you'll be deeply relaxed for about 30 minutes before we actually get into your first life or experience, archetypal experience at that point. And we go through about 3 different lifetimes or archetypal experiences and their stories. And they are coming from you, and you are in a somnambulistic state, which means you're kind of feeling like you're asleep, but you're fully lucid and fully conscious. You can snap out of it at any point you want. It's actually my job to keep you relaxed so that you stay in that alpha, state. So we start with the alpha state and we try to stay in that alpha state, but then eventually we move into the beta state. Okay, so the beta state is where we will stay for the duration of the session, and into the end of the session where we will be in direct contact with what we call your higher self. Of course, your higher self is also the voice of your subconscious. It's your internal guidance. It's your voice. It's you. And that's really ultimately where our goal is directed, is to get to you. And this day and age, it seems so, so simple. Well, just listen to yourself. But we're so bombarded with various voices and information and messages outside of ourselves, even through our guidance system, and half these guides, we're not even sure if are ours, other people, frequency wave patterns in the air, the list can go on with the amount of distractions, not to mention the media we take in, that can really be interfering with our voice. So this process simply gets us in touch with that so we can stay in touch with that inner knowing, which is really the connection voice to our higher sensory perception. That is the voice of the higher sensory perception, is that inner voice, that higher self, that subconscious self. And so that's where we end our session. After we've asked your higher self the questions that you come to the session with, and we'll get at, the answers that comes through. And sometimes they're not what we expect. And that's the beauty of this process. It's usually never what we expect. And that's really the most amazing part of this is, although we are in charge, we're not always ultimately in charge the way we think we are. There are always other things happening for us. And it's really up to us to explore that and to awaken with that information to the next level of our evolution. So as we use that information, then we can move on with it through healing, transformation, to transmute pain, and to ascend for the ascension process, which is really essentially activating our DNA that's been latent within us, so that we can begin to be the superpowers that we are here to be. We are the ones we've been waiting for. So it is time to awaken the sleepers within us so that we begin to do what we came here to do. And so therefore, thank you for, listening to this. And thank you for considering this work for you. And I hope that I can be here to support you through that process. And I'd love to connect with you in any way. If you feel like reaching out and just having a conversation or interview with me, please feel free to do that. You can reach me here on my website. My email is awakenedaspects@gmail.com. And, again, there are a plethora of videos that I will be providing on this process, as well as various other processes that I provide. And I do still do astrology. And I do like to pull up an astrology report for my clients I'll be doing sessions with, just for basic reference. And if that's something you're also interested in doing, we can talk about and discuss adding that to the session. So thank you again for joining me here today, and I look forward to connecting. Be well, stay awake, stay aware, and stay whole during these transitioning times. Bye-bye.